Okay, I wanted to check this with you, Alex, because you and I talked today and you gave Amazon as an example of this sort of filtering mechanism that makes sense. So I did a little poking here. So I'm here now, and I'm going to say look for books on cosmology. Okay, and there's the typical sort of maybe you meant this, maybe you meant that. Not too smart, because all it's doing is looking for the match of cosmology, but that's fine. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that search. Clearly, it's gone off and done interactions with the servers. The web services. I haven't got my HTTP Fox window open, but you can tell that's what it did. And then, I'm looking here. Okay, so there are 5,530 books on cosmology. Physics, it said, well, there must be 7,000 books on physics that have references to cosmology, blah, blah. But here's the interesting thing. So it's a little hard to tell, but I'm going to assume that, let's say, I'm going to go down here to this new releases, refined by. That's a clever way of doing it. New releases last 30 days, 66. So given this cosmology filter, if I then add a last 30 days filter, they're telling me that I'll find a total of 66 of them. So I do this, and I notice that two things. First of all, the numbers go down here. It still keeps most of the same list, although it looks shorter. So it looks to me like certain things have fallen off the list because I filtered by the last 30 days. Also, I noticed that none of these counts are as high as 66. Although totaling together they're more than 66. So the guess I have is that all of the books by category here, there are 66 unique titles that fall into here. 34 of them happen to be listed as cosmology books. 44 of them are listed as physics. There's some overlap between those. But basically that was the 66. So I see what it's doing here. If I click last 90 days, let's remember 193 here instead, so I'm going to filter it to last 90 days. We see the numbers go up. The list may have stayed roughly the same or may not, but it looks like that's basically the same thing. I do notice here, by the way, that it now says 64 here. Let me go back and clear this. And the interesting thing is last 30 days, 66. But as soon as I say last 90 days as a filter, then this goes down by 2, which must mean that it's recalculating this. Of the list of the ones that are in the last 90 days, only 64 of that 193 are in the last 64 days, whereas if I didn't put any filtering on them, it was 66. So that's a little odd. I don't know what that means. It has something to do with overlapping meta tags, etc. But I get what the idea here is now. Now I notice two things. If I go back to clear, this is taking a few seconds of network activity, so it's clearly going and doing network activity for certain of these things. And let's go ahead and do this. I just want to see what it does. So if I start it, and I do cosmology, we're clearly going to see a lot of network activity here. I'm not going to try to sort it out, but I'm going to go ahead and let it finish, which it looks like it did. So at this point, it's now gotten all of its information back. I'm not going to try to sort out most of this. Some of it's going to be JSON probably. I don't see it exactly. Oh, there it is. It's probably XML that it's going to get. Not going to try to figure it out, but somewhere in here it's getting this information that is reflected in the sidebar. What I really wanted to figure out was, now if I add a filter, let's go to the last 30 days filter. That happens instantly, or pretty darn quickly. So although it's going out and doing network work here, I will bet that's to get this information. This is probably recalculated by the JavaScript code itself. That was much too fast to have been done as a result of waiting for these answers. In fact, if I do a clear, that's pretty darn fast, and again, I'm going to guess without knowing the details that this is all done locally. So the fact that I cleared it and it went back to these numbers quickly probably means that the JavaScript code persisted that data and knew what these numbers needed to go back to when I did the clear. It didn't have to wait for an answer from the web service. And again, if I say last 30 days, it's pretty darn fast. It may remember this. I'm going to go ahead and do the following. Let's do a clear here and a reload of this page. So we're clean. And it'll take a few seconds to do that, obviously. And then once it's finished loading this, oh, that's interesting. It's remembering the fact that I wanted cosmology. Oh, it's actually remembering what I wanted. All right, let's go back and just do the Amazon stuff, shall we? Because I don't want it to cache any of this. Work my way here again. Okay, so let's shop by department. This is how I got there before. Not the Not the fastest thing in the world. I think I got there by shop by department. Okay, well, let's go for books. Digital. This doesn't look. Oh, there it is. Let's go to books. And I think that will take me back to the same place again. Not the fastest thing in the world. Okay, now let's go ahead and do my search clean again if we can. Go ahead and clear this. It'll probably do some background. You notice some background activity going on there as it's doing the predictive stuff. That's undoubtedly all. Yeah, there it is. Completion.amazon.com. There it is. Content. Oh, there it is. Yeah, the content came back. That's kind of the JSON-y or XML-y stuff that's coming back. Anyway, interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let's go do this. Let's go cosmology. Oops, sorry. It got away from me. Cosmology. Let's go ahead and let it do its thing. And there we go. Okay, so I'm back here again. I want to try to understand. There's a whole bunch of background activity they do pretty clearly on the network. Let's clear it. Let's start it. Let's refine it by the last 30 days. Now that, see how long that takes to draw? That clearly is the result of asking for back-end services to apply those filters, and they reply with these. They have to, because we don't have the local knowledge likely of how these map. But if I go back and I clear, that's immediate. So obviously it's persisting this data. If I add a new filter, 200 this time, we've added a few more. That's going to take a few seconds to build the list. It has to return this data, and now if I go back and clear, the original comes back instantly, so it's remembering that. Now I'm very curious, if I go back to last 30 days, will it redo it? Actually, it's doing some caching. Very, very interesting. So that's kind of a refinement that we may consider. Okay, so I get what you're doing here. Let me actually see. I'm just going to be very curious now. I've asked for last 30 days. Let's define it further with, let's see if Richard Dawkins. It's interesting. We're down to a limited number here, so they show me just those. If I show Andrew Thomas, these are not additive, it would appear. They are, in fact... Okay, so that's how they're doing their stuff there. Let's see how they do it here. Book series. So I think this may be what you're talking about when you're talking about multiple checkboxes. So let's just say I want Penguin Classics, and it shows me immediately when I do that. I don't see counts here, but clearly, did not match any products. So Penguin doesn't do that. Let's try for... something that sounds more sciencey, like Princeton Science Library. There we go. So it's going off and doing that. Last 30 days seems to be just a little bit too tight. So let's turn that off. Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to go back and restart again here. Sorry for the delay. Now, why is it... I probably pushed down too far. Okay, there we go. We're back here. I want to get to this. Instead of saying last 30 days, I'm going to leave that off. So let's go back here again. I'm just not going to do any filters for day. Let's take a look, if we can remember these numbers. There were, how many cosmology books? Oh my, this is hard to figure out, isn't it? Books... There it is. Okay, that's how we get back there. So cosmology, 5530 books if I leave it open. So now let's go to book series. If I go to the Princeton Library, that's going to be only one. Interesting. So that may not be... Well, let's try it. Let's see. Princeton Library. Now, these are probably additive. Let's pick Dover science books. Cosmology was 1. That was 4. Yes, so these are additive in an OR sense, and this is what you were trying to tell me about. So now I'm beginning to get it. And it pretty much looks like these have to be rebuilt each time. If I add another one, like, let's say Pocket Space Guides. So let's remember 4, 7, and 5 for the first 3 categories there. 4, 7, and 5. And now it comes back as 5, 9, and 5. So it's additive. These counts are updating and increasing, which kind of makes sense. Now I'm very curious that if I take Pocket Space Guides back off, that's pretty darn fast. So they are doing some caching here. If I take Princeton Science Library off and I just look for the Dover stuff, that's what we've got. Okay. So they are trying to do some smart caching here. I think as a first pass, we may not try to do the same thing. We may just say, look, we make the request. I'm now going to add back in Pocket Science Guides, and we make the request each time, and we get back from the service the count of the number of books. It is probably a good idea for our UI code to remember what the original unfiltered was, so that if we do a clear, we get this back immediately. But that's good. Okay, thanks.